Good day, Dragon Slayers. This is Dr. Tom Bittker, and I am offering you a podcast today. I'm going to do it solo because I don't know if others want to be associated with some of the arguments I'm about to launch. A couple of items in the news that we ought to attend to. The first is regarding the administration's efforts to defund federal monies to Harvard University. This might be perceived as egregious interference. However, understand that Harvard is supporting, under the banner of free speech, a fair amount of anti-Semitic rhetoric. Much of this has sprung from the October 7th massacre of innocent Jewish and Arab Israelis by Hamas. There's no way to look at this other than absolute evil. This is not an anti-Islamic posture, but it is in a posture that I've come to, understanding that jihadists really are a death cult. This has really been advanced first by a British writer, Douglas Murray, whose arguments I support entirely, in that jihadists worship death. They look upon death as an entry into heaven for Islamic martyrs, and that the killing of innocents carries minimal moral burden because they are also going to go to the hereafter and even are given an opportunity to save themselves on the threshold of their execution by converting to Islam. It's a very distorted culture. It does not represent all of Islam, but it certainly represents a factor of Islam that ought to be denied and recognized as evil, at least in conventional sense. The efforts on the part of the administration to protect the liberty of Jewish citizens and Jewish students, although may not be popular in all quarters, certainly ought to be supported by any thinking American. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is resurfacing in the news, and that's the trial of Luigi Mangione. Luigi Mangione, as you may recall, was the young man that assassinated the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, Brian Thompson. The backstory on this one is that Brian Thompson and the chairman of UnitedHealthcare, as well as a number of insiders, were being investigated by the government for their practices in denying payment for deserved services. It was discovered in the government audit that United had actually refused to cover 90% of initial claims that were requested by physicians and patients. That was about to be released to the public, and on the eve of the release, the United insider shareholders dumped millions of shares of UnitedHealthcare before the news was out, which caused them to garner a great deal of money and also cause the suffering of a number of investors and pension funds. Mangione himself had been victimized by United because his back surgeries had denied. Now, the course he took is not something we applaud, but note that on the bullet casings were found the words deny, delay, and depose, representing the strategy of UnitedHealthcare in preventing coverage for deserved healthcare benefits. Now, this further offered an opportunity to look at the relationship between UnitedHealthcare pharmacy benefit managers insurance, and ultimately the American taxpayer. What the American taxpayer is not aware of is that the American taxpayer originally funded the research on the weight loss drugs GLP-1 agonists through NIH. Once it was discovered that GLP-1 agonists were actually going to be effective in helping people lose weight, industry moved in, Lilly and Novo Nordisk, to purchase patents, to share some of the royalties with NIH, but nonetheless to take these drugs into the private sector and sell them at profit margins far greater than the expense that they incurred for these alleged drug developers. Indeed, when we look at the books of Lilly and Novo Nordisk, there's much more money spent on marketing these agents than there has ever been spent on research. And this Hobbesian bargain actually has penetrated many drugs, and there's this unsavory alliance between the pharmaceutical industry, insurance companies, pharmacy benefit managers, and the National Institutes of Health. It's one of the issues that we hope that Bobby Kennedy will be investigating as the director of DHEW. So these are just simply some alert points that I want you out there to be aware of before you take a political stand on these issues. This is a brief podcast, but I hope you will follow the money in this, do your own due diligence, and come up with your own conclusions. I look forward to seeing you next week. This is Dr. Tom Bittker, and if you wish to support this podcast, consider buying one of our products, either Dragon Slaying or the Dragon Slaying Manual, targeting people who've been traumatized and seeking a route to recovery. Until next week, be well. Goodbye.